let's go to our next panel here. I'm going to introduce our moderator and let him do the rest. Jason Colbert is the Director of Research at Dawson James Securities. Jason, good afternoon. How's it going today?
Very good, thank you. Really interesting day. When I woke up this morning and I saw the futures on the market, it looked like the market was going to get slammed, and here we are with the market up 386.
It's a good old reversal Thursday. All right, I'm going to hop off and let you introduce the panelists.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. This is actually a really interesting panel because we're taking a look at wellness, at aging, and the impact that some of the growth companies that we're covering in this conference can have in that area. And so you think that's a really diverse area, right? We want to age well. We want to remember things. We want to have a wake up in the morning refreshed. If you've ever snored, if you've ever had sleep apnea, you wake up in the morning tired. Aging and memory are critical elements. And I'll tell you, as I watch some of the news shows, I think the number one set of commercials that I constantly see are on products, over-the-counter nutritional products. You don't eat enough vegetables. Get your vitamins. And it's blistering to understand which are real, which aren't. And so we're going to address that issue as well. And for those of you who know me as an analyst who follows cell therapy, I've been following stem cell therapy for many, many years. We follow most of the companies. And that was how I came across Longeveron. And Jeff Green will talk with us about cell therapy and regenerative medicine and its role in aging. So with that, I'd like to start out the conference with Chromadax, talk with the CEO, Rob Fried, and learn a little bit about what this company is about. And I will tell you as an analyst, when I am assigned to work with a panel of companies, the first thing I do is I pull the financial filings. And I take a look and I say, what message is the income statement and the balance sheet telling me? And after I did that, I was really confused. I was just like, I'm not quite sure I understand this company. It's not clear what's going on. And the deeper I got into the conversation with Rob, I actually had one of those aha moments. And I think that's very critical for people to understand. When you see the market cap, when you see the cash on the balance sheet, when you start to look at this company, I think it's going to surprise you. Rob, take it away.
Thanks, Jason. Well, I'm Rob Fried. I'm the CEO of Chromadax. Ticker symbol is CDXC. Chromadax did approximately $60 million of revenue in 2020. We have about $45 million in cash as of the end of the first quarter. That is sufficient cash for us to be cash flow break even. What Jason was alluding to is Chromadax has a very, very strong and deep patent portfolio on a very unique ingredient called nicotinamide riboside. Nicotinamide riboside is the most effective and efficient precursor to a coenzyme called NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which is a coenzyme involved in all important metabolic cellular processes, including energy metabolism and cell repair. And we have been in the midst of very aggressive litigation for the last 5 years on one in particular very egregious infringer on our patent. And the company itself is hovering basically cash flow break even. We've been up $1 million, we've been down $1 million in the quarters, but we're spending several $1 million per quarter in this litigation. This litigation should the trial is scheduled for September of this year. Eventually, this thing will come to an end. The facts are very good about it. But that's really why the balance sheet and the income statement is somewhat confusing. The margins for the company have been around 60%. Last quarter, there were 63% gross margins. And as I said, it's a very, very unique molecule. It's probably the most interesting molecule to come around the dietary supplement ingredients in several decades. There have been over 100 peer-reviewed published studies on nicotinamide riboside, 11 clinical studies. And if you go to clinicaltrials.gov, you'll see there are 57 human clinical trials currently in process or having been published on this particular ingredient, nicotinamide riboside.
Rob, I just want to interrupt you on one thing. What is the market cap ballpark on the company?
$400 to $500 million.
Okay, so it's a very serious market cap. You have cash on the balance sheet. You also did mention that litigation to kind of get this IP infringer out of the way will begin in September. How long would that litigation typically take?
The litigation's been going on for 5 years. The trial itself will probably be a 2-week trial.
Yeah, so you might actually have results, and this has been this has been something. First of all, it's been weighing on the income statement. You've been spending money, but with this resolution, it could go away. And of course, you're expecting a favorable outcome.
Yes.
Okay, good. And so, sorry, I interrupted you. I know you were going to get a little bit into the science now of what is it that you have? Is this a prescription pharmaceutical? Is it an over-the-counter? Obviously, IP is really important. Tell me a little bit about what you've got.
We sell it as a dietary supplement. It's called True Niagen. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on our website. It will also be available next month in 3,800 Walmart stores. It's also sold at retail in Hong Kong in Watson stores, as well as in the UK at Superdrug stores, and in Singapore at Watson stores. But it's mostly an online endeavor. The molecule itself is interesting. I mean, there are certain disease states where there's... Go ahead.
So just one quick thing. After we spoke, I went on Amazon. I did purchase it, and I think I paid $46 for the bottle. And I think, is that a 30-day or I'm not quite... So I don't want to say it's expensive, yes, but it's not $10, right? So how do the margins work on a product like that?
Well, it's very expensive to make nicotinamide riboside. The organic chemistry of combining ribose to nicotinamide and making it stable and making it safe and doing it the proper way is an expensive process. So it's not, we don't see it as a luxury brand, but we see it as a very, very high quality brand because the product that we're offering is uniquely effective. Unlike the vast majority of dietary supplements, this is not something you're going to pee out. This is going to have an immediate physiological impact on your body. And we have numerous clinical studies to prove it. Within 2 hours of taking True Niagen, there will be an elevation in NAD levels at the cellular level. And when you elevate NAD, you increase mitochondrial biogenesis, PARP biogenesis, ATP production, which means the cells are much stronger. They have a greater ability to manage physiological stress, genetic damage, oxidative stress, and also to produce ATP molecules, to produce energy. So you will notice a difference right away. If you take it for 2 months' time, you will notice a dramatic difference in the way the body reacts to physiological stress, heals, essentially, and the way that you perform as a body. So it is a real thing, but we sell it as a dietary supplement.
Right. Well, I think every guy, I know I can't speak for everybody, but I can say every guy over 50, you know, you want to get the major difference you see is the time it takes to rebound. Right? Your rebound time is longer after physical exertion. And plus, of course, there's mental stress. So it sounds really interesting. Are there, and clearly, the fact that you have significant revenues, you're clearly selling this now. How are you getting these revenues today? Through what channel? And how much does Walmart potentially represent to you?
60% of our revenues are e-commerce based. That's our website as well as Amazon, but we also sell at retail in Hong Kong. We did $7 million in wholesale sales just in Hong Kong alone last year at Watson's. So the penetration rate in Hong Kong and in the Asian region is very high. They're aware of nicotinamide riboside and True Niagen much more than they are here. But our plan is to, over time, expand distribution to retail, starting with Walmart. And obviously the upside potential is there. Look, it's a dietary supplement that improves the way the body ages. It improves cellular response to physiological stress. The World Health Organization defines aging as the accumulation of damage at the cellular and molecular level and the diminished capacity for managing that stress. So what you're doing by elevating NAD is you're strengthening the cell's ability to cope with physiological stress. So the addressable market for a product like that is very, very high. And we see it as our responsibility to make it available to as many people as possible. One of the reasons why the price point is high, is $47, in addition to the fact that it's expensive to make, is that the dosage amount is high. It's 300 milligrams, what you bought, which is what the FDA has approved. We have new dietary ingredient status and graft status approved by the FDA. We don't only have FDA approval, by the way. We have European Food Safety Authority, Australia Health, Canada Health. I mean, this has been a heavily reviewed, studied, analyzed molecule. And the biochemistry community and regulatory bodies in general understand that this is the real deal. But 300, if you took 100 milligrams, it would be significantly less expensive, but still would have a lesser, but still a therapeutic benefit. So we do intend to sell a 1995 version at Walmart, which would be only 100 milligrams per capsule.
Gotcha. You know, one of the things that I hear a lot about, and this is relevant for all of our panelists, is the after effects of people who've had COVID and long haulers disease. And I wonder if, you know, a combination of all of these products might actually change the balance.
Well, Harvard Medical School and Mass General Hospital recently announced that they're doing a study on True Niagen and long haulers. This is on clinicaltrials.gov. This is brand new, and they're beginning this study. We have plenty of anecdotal evidence that those long haulers who have experienced COVID are experiencing mitochondrial dysfunction. It's basically fatigue and cognitive fog. And we know that elevating NAD speaks directly to fatigue, cognitive fog, and that. By the way, there are 2 studies that have been published out of Turkey, human phase 2 clinical studies conducted out of Turkey, phase 2 and a phase 3 study, both made public. One with 100 COVID symptomatic patients, another with 300 symptomatic COVID patients. When the remdesivir study was conducted, it revealed statistically significant improvement in the time to recover from symptoms from COVID, approximately 20 to 24% time to recover on remdesivir. The Turkey study was on a cocktail that included True Niagen, where the time to recover in the phase 2 study was 30%, and the time to recover in the phase 3 was 39%. Now, we're not selling a drug, so we can't market this as a drug to treat COVID, but the data is out there. The data is available.
Well, I mean, what's really interesting to me is this wasn't planned. It was just something that I was thinking about, and it turns out you're already there. So very exciting. We're really going to have to watch it. I'll tell you the other reason why I will sometimes wake up feeling exhausted is because I know I was snoring during the evening. And, you know, I'm not the kind of person, I always move around a lot when I'm sleeping. So, you know, CPAP and positive pressure wouldn't work for me. Kirk, what other options would somebody like me have that could end up getting a better restful night? And I will tell you, the greatest defense against COVID is good quality sleep. It is the single most important factor in boosting your immune system. That's very, very clear. So, Kirk, what are my options?
Well, thank you, Jason. Yeah, that's a great segue into the Vivos story. My name is Kirk Huntsman. I am the co-founder and CEO of Vivos Therapeutics. Our trading symbol is VVOS. Our market cap is 120 million. We have, we have roughly 38 million on the balance sheet in cash, and our company is bringing to market 2 important technologies that address the fundamental needs of people with sleep apnea. And the first of those is, you know, there's 1 billion people here on planet Earth that are estimated to have obstructive sleep apnea. And out of those 1 billion people, the vast majority, as much as 80 or 90%, don't even know they have it. And thus they remain undiagnosed and untreated. What our first technology happens to be the result of some technology. I'm holding this in my hand here. This is the functional equivalent of what used to be the in-lab overnight sleep tests, the polysomnograms. We can get statistically equivalent data now out of a single sensor ring device that that contains proprietary software and algorithms. This is approved by FDA for both children and adults to test and monitor and establish sleep quality and diagnose obstructive sleep apnea and other sleep
So
conditions.
that device, I could basically see my doctor, get that device, go home. I don't have to go to a sleep lab somewhere. And I can find out within a day whether I have sleep apnea.
That's
or
exactly
what's going
right.
on at night.
That's exactly right. You need two things. You need a cell phone and you need this little ring sensor. And the little ring is going to Bluetooth into your cell phone, get to the app. You're going to go to sleep. You slip this on your finger. You go to sleep. You wake up. You take the ring off. Within 10 minutes, the algorithms in the cloud process it and push it over, push the entire report with the full diagnosis over to your healthcare provider. The healthcare practitioner evaluates it, looks at it, gives you a diagnosis. We actually have then a therapeutic product, which is our flagship product, which actually we've brought to market. As you asked me, sort of what's your alternatives for treatment? The second challenge with obstructive sleep apnea patients, the first one being we don't know who has it. Now with this, the costs have gone from $3,000 a night to $3. So each test has now been dramatically reduced with this technology. And Vivos has the exclusive rights. This technology came out of Harvard University's Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. Dr. Robert Thomas and Dr. Cleet Kushida pioneered this years ago. It's been licensed by a company right here in Colorado that they gave us the exclusive license for North America to go through the dental profession, which is how our second appliance, our real therapeutic appliance, comes into play. We actually have the ability to alter the dentition, alter the morphology, the anatomy of the oral cavity, and in so doing, reposition that anatomy so that the airway gets bigger. And as the airway gets bigger, patients don't need to have any interventions for life that you have with CPAP or you have with, let's say, an Inspire Medical Systems implant, or you have with any type of other oral appliance. Our oral appliances do things to open up the airway in about 12 to 24 months for most patients. They can come into treatment and go out of treatment. They start off breathing through a drinking straw that collapses. They end up breathing through a garden hose that doesn't. They look better, they feel better, they have more energy, and all the downstream issues associated with obstructive sleep apnea tend to dissipate.
So what I hear you saying is that the device you're showing me, you've basically created the diagnostic, which kind of opens up the market because the market is dramatically underdiagnosed. A lot of people think I snore, so what, right? But they're not connecting that they're tired. There are all these other symptoms. Maybe they talk about it with their doctor. They're not willing to kind of go to a sleep clinic. So this is another way to say, hey, you have this. Yeah. Once you have it, the doctor is then going to maybe say, hey, I want you to see your dentist, or maybe there's an obstruction. And there's a point at which you're going to be referred into the dentist, who will then say, okay, the second part of this is I have an appliance. Here's what we can do. Here's how we can work with you. Is that right?
Exactly right. So we did a pilot study where we took these little ring devices. We took 5 ring devices and sent them out to 12 of our Vivos trained dentists. They tested 938 patients over a 90-day period. And what we found was 56% of the patients treated with this device actually showed positive for obstructive sleep apnea. Think about that in the general population, because these were random patients going through the hygiene departments of their local dentists. And as they did that, 56% were tested by this little ring to be positive for obstructive sleep apnea. And when they did that, half of those patients went into therapy with our oral appliance therapy, which I have just an example of here, but the half of those patients went into treatment. If you think about that as an indicator or a proxy for what can happen as we roll this technology out. We've only had this for a couple of months, and we're still in the process of bringing it to market. But what we're finding is that having the availability of these rings It initiates the dialogue between the dentist, the patient, and the sleep physician. And once that dialogue gets started and patients realize they have the condition, they want to get treated. They don't want to suffocate. They don't want to go into CPAP. They don't want to have some of these, they don't want to have a surgical resolution or something like an implant or anything like that. So we feel like we have a very strong competitive advantage in a market that is just, I don't know of any medical market.
Talk a little bit now about what is the strategy to commercialize this then? Is it to go out and reach those dentists and say, by the way, you know, start to put out signs within your office. Do you snore at night? You might have sleep apnea. Talk to your dentist. What's the rollout look like? How do you, it sounds like you know a story of execution.
First thing to know is, so the first thing to know is that the American Dental Association came out with a position statement that said that every dental office needs to screen their patients for obstructive sleep apnea. In addition to all the dental conditions, they know and they've recognized that dentists can play an essential role in the patient journey, from understanding that they have the condition, screening the diagnosis, to actually downstream helping that patient and working collaboratively with the physicians to resolve it. So the patient comes into hygiene, the patient gets asked a series of questions, they get handed one of these rings to go home, and multiple nights with multiple people in that family can be tested by this ring. The reports come back in, the profiles are given, the sleep physicians are integrated into the process to make the final diagnosis, the treatment plans are established, the oral appliances are fabricated, treatment begins, and then 12 to 24 months later, treatment ends. With the patient need to have an ongoing treatment the rest of their life.
I would assume this represents a nice chunk of revenue to the dentist and to his practice too.
Yes, this is the single most productive, single most profitable procedure in all of dentistry. A case to a patient is going to be about $8,000 to $9,000, with half of that typically being covered by medical insurance. So the dentist receives the insurance reimbursements, and then in addition to that, the patient will pay out the balance on a fee-for-service basis, and the doctor will have about $3,000 of actual costs, and the balance of that is take-home pay profit for the dentist. So it's very, very lucrative, very profitable. The patients win, the providers win, and Vivos has 80% gross margins. So we have a really nice model with every layer of the economic ladder being very, very incentivized.
And the product is out being commercialized today.
Yeah, we've actually treated about 18,000 patients to date.
Wow. Okay, great. Thank you. So, Jeff, I want you to close us up. One of the things that I've always thought about when I think about stem cell therapy, particularly systemic allogeneic stem cell therapy, is you feel really good afterwards. I know that because I've actually had a therapy, and it was amazing. I had some wonderful, very positive experiences afterwards. We know that a lot of cell therapies are being developed for a lot of specific indications. Tell me a little bit about how you view your mission at Longeveron. What kind of cell therapy is it, and what are you going after?
Thanks, Jason. I'm the CEO of Longeveron. The ticker symbol is LGVN. We have a market cap of about 100 million. Due to a very recent IPO on NASDAQ, we have $24.5 million on the balance sheet at the end of the first quarter. And that gives us enough cash to last well into the fourth quarter of 2022, which would enable us to hit a number of internal catalysts related to our clinical development pipeline, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But to answer your question, the sole mission of the company, when it was founded about 7 years ago, was to address some very difficult to treat chronic aging-related diseases and disorders like aging frailty and Alzheimer's disease. The overarching goal here is to use the body's endogenous repair mechanism, the very specialized cells that exist in all of our bodies called medicinal signaling cells, and harness those properties to stimulate the repair and regeneration of damaged tissues and organs that occurs as we age. So really, we're improving health, we're preserving independence, and we're improving the quality of life of patients. So we're solidly in phase 2 or transitioning to phase 2 in 5 indications. And the goal here is we have 3 data readouts over the next 2 quarters, and we'll be initiating 3 new clinical trials this year. We are tackling aging-related disease in both the United States and Japan, 2 of the largest aging demographics in the world. And so we have a very robust pipeline. The product is very well characterized. It's derived from the bone marrow tissue of young, healthy donors between the ages of 18 and 45. So we isolate those very cells that I spoke of earlier, and we'll culture expand them in a facility here in Miami. We have our own manufacturing facility, and they go through a very specialized technique where they expand into the billions of cells, and we can freeze them down and make individual doses, which we've done for our entire clinical program. And Jason, we've treated over 300 people in the last 5 years in our various clinical trials. And one more note is that clinical trials are long and potentially take some time to get through. And they're very restrictive to many people in the population. So we also have a revenue generating open label treatment registry in Nassau, Bahamas, not far from our headquarters. And so we've had that open for about 3 years. And we export our product from Miami into Nassau, Bahamas, where eligible participants receive the treatment at their own expense. And while it's investigational therapy in Bahamas, just as it is the United States, we're permitted to charge a fee there to recoup our expenses.
So what I hear you saying in some ways, I think, I follow Athersis, I follow Mesoblast, they're allogeneic cells, highly selected for certain attributes. But what's exciting for me is Mesoblast just announced 60-day COVID data, COVID-related ARDS, that looks pretty good. Athersis is in 2 pivotal trials, one the U.S., rest of the world, one in Japan, for the after effects associated with stroke. And Mesoblast is in about to report data around degenerative disc disease, and they've reported some very interesting data in congestive heart failure. This space has been waiting for a win for the last 2 decades. And, for me as an analyst, a key question is when are we going to have a win? But once we put up one win, I wonder if we might not see a paradigm shift where people will suddenly start kind of looking into the space. If that happens, where is Longeveron positioned? And is your IP strong enough to kind of withstand the test so that you can be a player in this space?
So you brought up Athersis, and that's a good example. So they're doing stroke trials in both the United States and Japan. We have just completed our phase 1 Alzheimer's program, and we have some very exciting data in that program. And it's striking to see that in a small trial designed to show safety, we showed a delay in progression of disease according to the mini mental state exam. So that program is, as we speak, transitioning to a phase 2 trial. So if we see a company like Athersis, who's a little bit further ahead of us in a neurodegenerative type of indication, get a win in their phase 2-3 program, which are both in Japan and the U.S., I think that's going to benefit not only Longeveron, but the field as well, especially for these very difficult diseases where there's questions about how you can do a peripheral IV transplant of allogeneic cells and have a neuroregenerative effect in the brain. And so we're going to see some results coming out shortly that I think are external catalysts that would raise the boat for all of the companies like Longeveron and others who are in related fields. So,
Rob, we could see from Chromadax how important IP is. You feel confident in your IP, Jeff?
Yeah, we can't patent the cell itself, as you know, Jason, but there is a portfolio of patents around Longeveron's methods of use, which are under prosecution across the world. As more clinical data comes in from our clinical studies, we take that information and we continue to file new and expanded patents. For example, in our Alzheimer's program, We're now working on the patent applications for the potency assays that are specific to that disease using the clinical data that we're getting out of that program. And so there have been a handful of other groups who have tried to treat cognitive decline or Alzheimer's disease, but generally they're using autologous therapy. They're using the cells from the patient who's got the disease. And so Longeveron's differentiation there is that we're not doing that. We're taking the young, adult, healthy cells from the donors and using that as our technology platform to try to suppress the neuroinflammation.
It's not pursuing integration, it's pursuing the trophic effect, which I think makes the most sense when we look at this space.
And it facilitates the commercial scale up as well because we're using an allogeneic product versus autologous.
No doubt. And then what a huge differentiator this is versus, say, CAR T, right? Where you can never get away from the very high autologous costs. Gentlemen, I'd like you all to kind of shape up one parting comment for me. So, Rob, why should I be buying Chromadax stock today?
If you're a person that's interested in improving the way your body ages, then you should be a person interested in at least looking at the Chromadax stock.
Right. And you, by the way, I love your passion. You strike me as a very serious guy, multiple analysts covering this company, $500 million market cap. And we could be on the verge of seeing the company become cash flow positive, in the period ahead. So something that I find attractive as an analyst. Kirk, you're about to kind of break into a whole new market. The whole idea of dealing with sleep apnea in the dentist's office is really something new. I could tell you, I have a brother who's a veterinarian, and he's always looking for the next hook, right? Because as a veterinarian, the way you make money is on the extra services you provide. So I have to think that just from the point of view of the provider, that this becomes a very attractive business, plus your patients become happier.
Yeah, so look, I think if you breathe or you sleep or you want to breathe and sleep better, and you want to just really think about what it takes to do that, Vivos has an amazing technology that is unprecedented, unparalleled, and is helping thousands of patients around the world with their sleep apnea. We're playing in a huge market. We're a newcomer on the block, but everybody who hears this is going to hear about Vivos very soon. We're gonna make a big splash because we have that kind of disruptive technology.
Jeff, one of the things that I've always found attractive about cell therapy is risk reward, right? Seems to me to be very safe. Boy, Alzheimer's is an unmet medical need. What parting comment would you give me to kind of think about the company?
We cannot escape the inevitable stem cell decline and corresponding rise of chronic disease. We can't escape it due to the physiology of our bodies. So there is not a person over the age of 65 that does not want to see a company like Longeveron succeed in using a donor cell that's responsible for repair and regeneration show benefit in people over the age of 65 who are suffering from chronic disease. It's the tool that geriatricians are missing.
My biggest problem as an analyst is I now want to sign up for each of your products, right?
Let's do it.
It's very exciting. Thanks, guys. This was a great
Thank
panel.
you.
I really appreciate it. I'm going to turn it back to our host, Spencer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.